Have you ever loved someone or something that you knew for a fact wasn't good for you, that didn't love you back, but it was so hard to let go? What happens when our goals are to build and to create progress, but we fall in love with something that brings us towards the opposite? What happens when our goals are to build and grow and evolve, but the things we love are holding us back? When we talk about love here, we're not just talking about a feeling or emotion, we're talking about actions. What happens when the very thing that you put your time, energy, and effort into, your money and resources into, doesn't pay you back? Doesn't care about you, will never reciprocate or show you the love back that you gave to it? What happens when you fall in love with the wrong thing instead of embracing what's right? One of the hardest feelings in the world to accept, one of the most difficult pills to swallow, is knowing that you've been spending your time, energy, and efforts on something that doesn't love you back, that you've been giving your all while the very thing that you've been loving couldn't feel any further from the way you do. What do you do when you love the wrong things? Well, for me, the beauty and curse of love is that if in fact it is an action, you can change those. Oftentimes, there's something you can do about loving the things that aren't paying you dividends, that will never show you that same love back. And that isn't to say that everything we do is for the purpose of reciprocity, that every favor or kind act that we commit has to be paid back in full. That's not what we're saying. What I'm talking about is the idea of loving people and things that don't love you back, that will never give you that return because they're not even thinking the same way. If you're pouring all of your love, heart, and energy into someone or something and it's paying you back nothing, you gotta reevaluate. And that's what we're gonna talk about today. Where are you spending your time? Where are you spending your energy? Where are you spending your effort? And is it paying off? And if not, how do we reevaluate? If not, how do we become honest with ourselves and let ourselves know, hey, this ain't working? It's never too late to pivot, but if you aren't willing to look in the mirror and reflect on what's been happening, how can you ever do it? If you aren't willing to be honest with yourself and acknowledge and recognize the very things you've been putting all of this stuff into is not loving you back, that's a hard pill to swallow. And that's exactly why we want to talk about it today. Because the further you become committed to this thing that isn't committed to you, the harder it becomes to get out of it. And make no mistake about it, you can always leave, you can always get up, you can always move, but how much harder are you going to make it for yourself? It doesn't matter what year or day or time you're watching this video. If you know you've been committed to something that ain't quite right, now is the time we can do something. If you know for a fact that you've been committed to something that isn't paying you off, that doesn't show you love, it's never too late to change. But are you willing to do it? Will you show yourself the very love that you want everybody else to show you in order to commit? For me, every single time we come to the end of the year, it's always a great time of reflection. The holidays, especially New Year's, remind us of just how much time has passed. The end of the year reminds us of all the things that we've been through, all the things that have passed throughout the year, and even the things that we need to improve and change upon. If you set goals in January, are you still living up to them? If you set boundaries at the beginning of the year, have you respected those things? If you told yourself you would commit to certain things for yourself and even for others, how's that progress looking? If the most important architect of your life is you, what are the things that you've been committed to and loving on, and how are they paying you returns? For myself, it's simple. I knew at the beginning of the year I wanted to transform not only my mind, but my body and my spirit and my energy and everything. I was seeking an infinite evolution. I was seeking to become my best self. It's not a process that will ever fully be complete. It's something I'm constantly working on every single day, embracing the process. Winning the small moments, focusing on winning a simple day before we can even get to an entire New Year's resolution. And it's been life-changing. One of the most powerful forces that I've been able to encounter over the last few years is simply writing down my goals. The way my mind naturally works, I'm a creative. My brain can be all over the place. I've always got ideas. I've always got new things I'm thinking of. There's always an opportunity coming up. But at a certain point, if I want to reach the highest level, I got to find a way to get organized. And so in a future video, I'm going to break down specifically how to write those goals, how to set those goals, and how to start winning. But for now, I just want to focus on the fact that I did it. Previously, up until now, I know that I wasn't achieving what I wanted to. I knew that where I wanted to be as a creative was not where I was. And in order for me to bridge that gap, I had to do something different. My time is precious and limited. And so if I'm truly serious about becoming the creative professional that I really want to be, I got to make some adjustments. No longer can I come home and simply scroll through my phone if it's not going to get me closer to where I want to be. But if I know for a fact that I have a very specific set of tasks that I got to get done on that day, and all I got to do is execute them, everything after that becomes gravy. What I'm saying is, maybe the things that are tearing you down, maybe the things that are holding you back are not the type of things that you got to completely eliminate. Maybe you need to limit them. Maybe you need to become better at managing your time. Maybe too much of a good thing can become a bad thing. Or maybe that thing completely needs to be done away with and you need to think of a different way. Whatever the case may be, no one is coming to save you. Superman isn't going to come out of the sky, swoop down, and give you the tools and remedies for your life. You got to create it yourself. As a young man in college, one of the most powerful quotes that I ever saw was 3 words. You must create. And it's true. You must create. The love that you're living in is a creation of you. The results that you're living in is a result of you. The success that you see today is a result of the things that you loved yesterday and 2 years ago and 3 years ago and 5 years ago. But what are you loving and how much time and energy and effort are you committing to that love? When you love something, you cherish it, you value it, you protect it. You don't treat it as whimsical and you don't take it for granted. Well, if you love your future, what are you doing about it? If you love your body and your physical, what are you doing about it? For me, one of the biggest challenges that I've had was taking care of and loving my physical body the way I claim I truly do. The way life is set up, family, work, job, all of the above, I often come last in all of these hierarchies. However, how can I serve the people who I claim to love most if I'm not at my best? If my body's breaking down, cholesterol is high, blood sugar through the roof, how can I be there to show up for the people who matter most if I'm not doing what it takes on a day-to-day in order to become my best? So as much as I could claim that I love and enjoy eating pizza, having fast food all the time, putting things in my body that don't make me feel good after I eat the food, I had to make an adjustment. I had to look in the mirror and reflect and think, what am I really loving? Where am I putting my time and energy? Even though I'm only putting a little bit of time and a little bit of energy percentage-wise into eating the bad food, how much of a result is it giving me? The food might only last 10, 15 minutes, but I'm carrying it with me for days and weeks. It's not quite right. I'm loving the wrong thing. I'm loving the brief moment of the satisfaction that the food is giving me. But what about the results it's giving you after that? If the pleasure only lasts for a brief moment, but the pain lasts for so much longer, the struggle lasts for so much longer, the obesity and being overweight lasts for so much longer, what's really worth it? What am I really saying that I love? The brief moment or myself? So I had to readjust. I had to reset. I had to think things over. In August, I decided no more pizza or fast food. And it's not a never situation where I could forever not have it. It's a perspective situation. It's a matter of making sure that I'm recognizing and realizing what's actually taking place. Where am I in position to where I want to be? If I know that I want to live a long and healthy, fulfilling life, how can I do that if my body isn't working? How can I be the creator that I really want to be if I'm constantly fueling myself with the worst fuels? How can I be the creator, business owner, friend, leader, father, husband, all of that I truly want to be if I'm not putting into myself the very things that'll help me become it? If I'm cutting corners, if I'm taking shortcuts, how can I show up and serve the very people who I love most? It won't be possible. Because when you love something and you cherish it and you value it, it's not enough to simply toss it to the side. It's not enough to minimize the effect of what it is. And so even though I enjoy eating foods that are fun, I also got to recognize and realize you also want something else that's far bigger than that. My ultimate goal is to build an empire where I can help people, where we can build and grow and evolve together. But I cannot do that if I'm not around long enough or healthy enough in order to see the vision through. If I know for a fact that God has put it on my heart to become my best self and be a beacon of light and hope for others, how dare I not do that? By the way, how I carry myself physically is a representation of not only what I think, not only what's going on in my mind, but it's something for others to see. What if there's an opportunity for me to be a beacon of hope for somebody who's struggling, who's lost, who's maybe been loving the wrong things? What if for that person, I could be the person who they say, he did it. He didn't give up. He didn't quit. Oftentimes when we're on the edge of a breakthrough and we're right there and all it takes is a little bit more, we quit. And I don't want that to be me. Further, I don't want to look back on time and say, what if or woulda, coulda, shoulda. I know for a fact that I got the time right now. I know for a fact that I got the energy right now, the discipline right now, the drive, the passion, the will to do it right now. So I can't let it pass. Because far too often we love things that prevent us from the very goals and dreams that we claim to love. And it's not even that in our heart of hearts we don't. But our actions must align. There has to be some consistency. Saying you love something but doing the opposite isn't really love. Saying that you care about your future but doing everything you can to ruin it isn't love. When we love habits and things that prevent us through action from being where we want to be, what does it do to our future? What does it do to our mindset? What does it do to our character? There has to be a difference between a person who executes, commits, locks in, is disciplined, and shows love to the things that'll get them those long-term results, there has to be a difference between them and the person who takes the shortcuts. Which one will you choose to become? And more than anybody else, I'm speaking to myself. I'm speaking to my younger self. I'm speaking to that young man who knows he has it in him, but he's been committed to some actions that are destroying him. I'm speaking to that young woman who knows for a fact that she's built like that, but for whatever reason, she's been distracted. She's been lost. She's been confused. Maybe a foggy mind. Whatever the case, you can change. You can fix it. You can adjust, you can grow, you can evolve, and you can become your best self. And even if you're not young as far as years on this earth, it's still not too late. As long as you have air in your breath, as long as your eyes can see, as long as your nose can smell, and you can feel the very things that are passing through this earth, you shouldn't be giving up. You should keep going. You should give it a little bit more. Maybe go back to the drawing board, maybe evolve, maybe find a new way. But whatever the case, make sure you're loving the right things so that you can get the results. Part of loving the wrong things is placing an increased value and importance on short-term gratification. Oftentimes the things that we love require patience, require us to be still, require us to be disciplined. And oftentimes when we're building towards something, you can't see the result. Oftentimes when you're going to the gym and you're on that fitness journey, you won't see results day to day. You might not even see them week to week, but 3 months later, 6 months later, 10 months later, a year later, the results will be there. But if the only way to bridge the gap between point A and 10 months later is you putting in the work, you got to start putting in the work. You got to start to love and embrace the process. You got to start to love the daily, and you got to start to reimagine and rethink the way you look at discipline. What if discipline itself is love? What if saying no to the things that are wrong and that aren't serving you better, what if that's love? What if the very first love before anyone else starts with yourself? And if you can treat yourself right, if you can prioritize yourself and your health and your wealth and building and growing and evolving just for you, how can you do it for others properly? How can you show up for everyone else if you won't even do it for yourself? And what if they're watching? What if there's people who are watching you, looking at you like the role model, looking at you and coming to you for that light? If they can't even get it from you and you're the only beacon of hope they got, where are they going to get it from? You got to be better. You got to make sure that you are physically, spiritually, mentally, and emotionally loving things that are serving you. Not just for yourself, but so that the people around you can pick up on that energy. By the way, when something is precious and valuable and important to us, how do we treat it? Are we risk takers and random with it? Are we consistent and deliberate with it? Do we pretend to care, or do we give it our all? Do our actions look different when we care about something versus when we claim to? If our thoughts precede our actions, the way you think about things, the way you love things is going to determine how you feel about it. If you don't love that discipline, how are you going to love your future? If you don't love the process, how are you going to become better? If every single time doing the things it takes to get you closer to whatever your ultimate goal is, if it feels like misery, if it's like pulling teeth, if you got to have your arm twisted for it, maybe you need to rethink and evaluate the way you've been thinking. The things that you are putting into your mind. And for sure, there's so many influences in this life that are going to tell you, be lazy, take the shortcut, instant gratification. You could kick the can down the road just a little bit longer. It doesn't matter. You could take off here. And you got to question why. How many people on this earth truly want to see you become better? Is it the majority? Is it half? Is it most? The truth of the matter is, I don't know. For sure, there's people who want to see you win and succeed. For sure, there's others who want to see you fail. For sure, there's others who couldn't care less what it is you're doing. They're just focused on their journey. You got to be focused on you and yours. And of course, when it comes to loving the wrong things, we could also include in that loving the wrong people. Loving the wrong feelings, loving the wrong mindsets. Maybe you love to be a little bit toxic. Maybe you love to argue. Maybe you love to bicker. Maybe you love petty and back and forth and tit for tat. But what's it ultimately doing to you as a person? If you truly seek a life of peace and prosperity, how can you love and embrace cattiness, bickering, hate, negativity? It won't work. When we think about loving ourselves and our future, loving the right things, making sure that we're putting ourselves in a position to where we can get whatever it is that we truly desire, we got to look at the algorithm of our lives. So whether we're talking about the music we listen to, the TV shows we love to indulge in or watch, the social media that we constantly embrace, but where you spend your time and how you spend your time is a direct reflection of all the things you love. And so you can claim you love to build, that you're passionate about growth, that you want to see yourself doing better. If you know for a fact that when you get home, you only got 2, 3, 4, maybe even just 1 hour to yourself, can you really afford to spend that time scrolling through your phone mindlessly, wasting it on video games? Not saying never do these things, Not saying never watch Netflix or have fun or chill or enjoy or indulge in that good food or have a good time. What I'm saying is you got to put everything into perspective. If you're still in a season where you're building and growing and trying to get to that place, you can't take the same shortcuts. You can't have the same fun as the people who are already at the top. Oftentimes in our lives, comparison is the thief of joy. When we compare our lives to others, our success to others, when we look on social media or at TV or the rich and wealthy and famous, we often look at ourselves and feel inadequate. We often look in the mirror and feel like we haven't done enough. And maybe on some level it's true, but that sort of thinking is not going to get you where you want to be. Well, what if instead of comparing yourself to celebrities and influencers and people who only show you the highlights, what if you compared yourself to yourself? What if you compare you with where you were yesterday or a week ago or 3 or 5 or a month or a year or whatever? You are in competition with you. So if you really want to love yourself in the best way possible, if you want to evolve, if you want to grow, if you want to hit that new pinnacle, maybe you should start looking at you. Maybe a big part of loving yourself in the process and being dedicated and disciplined and committed to doing what it's going to take to get you to that next place is simply learning not to love comparison. What they bought, what they're wearing, how they're thinking, who they're married to, but you aren't them. And comparing yourself to them is going to be a problem because comparison is the thief of joy. How can you find true peace if you're always comparing where you are to what the next person is doing? For all you know, that person is miserable. For all you know, that person is simply showing you highlights. For all you know, it doesn't matter what they're doing because that's still not your life. What about loving excuses? What about if you know for a fact there's a place you want to be, but you're really good with words? You're really nice with making excuses. Do you love to make excuses that will keep you from being where you ultimately want to go? And I've been guilty of that as well. Oftentimes when people exhibit any sort of higher level of intelligence, they also use it to embrace higher levels of excuses. Maybe you're a creative genius. Creative geniuses often create genius ways to procrastinate. Mathematical geniuses can come up with the perfect mathematical equation to waste time. What are you embracing? Are you loving those excuses? Are you loving the results? Are you loving the process? Or are you loving coming up with the reason why you didn't get it done? Either way, you get to choose. Either way, you get to decide where you spend your love, but what are you doing? Every single day, the direction of our lives is being shaped and molded by the things we love. But what are you dedicated to? Who are you loving on? What are you loving on? And just how committed are you really? Have you embraced the idea of discipline, understanding and recognizing that discipline is love? Or are you still having that internal battle where you don't quite realize that short-term gratification and long-term gratification oftentimes cannot coexist in the same place? I'm not saying don't be human. I'm not saying never take a moment off. I'm saying you got to be efficient with your time if you know it's limited. Because if we're talking about love, not just as a feeling, but actions, there's only so much time in a day. There's only so much energy that you can spend doing various different things. Recently, I listened to a podcast where they explained it in one of the best ways I heard it. What if your brain only has a certain number of units of focus every single day? Let's make it a clean number. What if your brain only has 100 units of focus every single day? And every single thing you do, whether it's thinking about something, stressing about something, worrying about something, working out, exercising, everything you do that takes mental energy is going to take away from those shares of mental focus. If you know for a fact that you got a limited supply of energy, focus, time, you would be so much more cautious with how you spend it. Again, if something is precious and valuable, you're not going to be random and willy-nilly with it. You're going to be careful. And again, when we love something, it doesn't matter what we say. What we do is far more effective. If somebody told you they love you, but their actions show the opposite, what are you going to believe? If somebody tells you that they feel a type of way about you, but every single time they get a chance to prove it, they do the opposite, what are you going to believe? Now flip the dynamic. You are the person. You are the one that's claiming, I want these goals. You are the person who's saying, I want to be here. I want to achieve this. I want to get this. How much love are you showing yourself? Have you really been committed? What if an outsider came and looked at your life and they audited everything? Time spent, energy spent, effort spent, mental capacity spent. What would they say about you and the things that you love? Would they know for a fact, if they couldn't talk to you, that you love your future? You're dedicated to your goals. You're on your purpose and you're committed in a way that cannot be stopped. Or would they find chinks in the armor? or what they find out that you're not as committed as you claim to be. By the way, one of the things that we often fall victim to and fall in love with is the idea of telling people what we've done, telling people what we're working on as we're working on it or before it's completed. Your brain receives the same amount of stimulation from actually achieving a thing as it does when you tell people about the thing. So you can trick yourself into having this piece of fool's gold by telling people you're working on it, telling people you're doing it, and never actually getting it done. Are you addicted to telling people about your success before you achieved it? Are you addicted to telling people what you're gonna do before it's even done? What if you were addicted to results? What if you were addicted to living in the moment and embracing getting it done before you went about bragging about it? Because it gets tiresome having people check on you 3, 5, 10 months down the line and you still haven't made any progress. Oh, remember you said you were gonna? Remember you were starting? Remember that project you began? Or remember when you started this? Or remember when you said that? Telling people before it's done, telling people before you even really committed or got started can be a trap. It's a thing that we often fall in love with because it feels good and it often feels like achieving the very thing that we're trying to do, but they're not the same. And you got to be careful about falling in love with that. At the same time, what about falling in love with the process? What about falling in love with not looking years and years down the line, but just winning the day? Just being in the moment, just recognizing and understanding the power of being where your feet are, because that's the most important. If the past is already gone and the future isn't promised, the present is the greatest gift any of us have. What are you doing with it? Do you love doing what it takes in the present in order to get to that future in which you claim you care about? If so, you'll make it. If so, you'll win. If not, it's going to be a struggle. By the way, the higher you go, the more temptations you're going to see. So maybe learning to embrace discipline and the process and the day-to-day is the very thing it's going to take to prepare you to stay at the top. Oftentimes we hear stories of people rising to the top but crashing and burning just as quick. And it's often because they weren't actually prepared to be at that level. What if every single day that you're going through right now is preparing you for that next one? It's preparing you for that great future that you've been dreaming of. You got to execute today. You got to put the work in now, because if you fulfilling your dreams in 5 years is based on you putting in work today, are you doing it? What are you loving on? The process, the discipline, the consistency, or talking about it, or dreaming about it, or excuses, procrastination, and everything else that's not what you really want, right? When we allow our minds to wander too far, we become distracted, unfocused, undisciplined, and it becomes that much harder to keep track of the things you're doing. When we allow our minds to wander and stray too far, we become vulnerable. We become undisciplined. We become easy to defeat, which is why now more than ever, you got to protect what's going on up here, which is why today and now more than ever, you have to protect everything that's going on in your mind. Everything you see, hear, and listen to, you got to be intentional about, because for sure somebody's trying to influence you. How many people are influencing you to be more disciplined? And just because you don't know about it or recognize it doesn't mean that that very willful ignorance cannot still bring you harm. And again, who really loves it more, the talker or the doer? The person with the ideas or the person who executes? The person who's always telling you what's coming next versus the person who's always showing you what's happening right now? The person who's always planning and always has an idea and always has the next big thing but never executes? Or the person who's always putting in work, who's always willing to put their head down, who's always willing to embrace the process and understand that perspective is going to be needed? Maybe not every day I'll see results. Maybe it won't feel like I'm close to the breakthrough. Sometimes your breakthrough is just on the other side of today's work. Sometimes it's 3 years away. But whether it's here and now or whether it's far in the future, the work you're putting in today is either getting you closer or further. What do you love? And what are you embracing? And not just based on what your words say, but what your actions are showing. We live in a world where men love to babble and talk. But what about the action? We live in a world where we have far too many people who are willing to talk and complain and criticize, but how many people are willing to step up, stand up, and take the actions they need? That's what we're here to talk about today. This is the infinite evolution. Because again, who loves you more, the person who tells you they love you or the person who shows you? The person who tells you how committed they are or the person who consistently proves it? And again, we're not even talking about others, we're talking about you. How much can you love yourself if you're not willing to take the actions that prove it? How committed can you be to your dreams and future if you won't take the actions necessary to commit? Love isn't just a feeling or emotion, it's an action. And so the time, places, energy, people, where you spend that action, where you spend that time, is all up to you. But what are you doing with it? Those consistent actions, the small moments that you had to win, and even the mindset and thinking that led up to it are often up to you. Even if you don't know, recognize it, or understand it, Time is still passing regardless. Life is still moving regardless. What are you doing with your opportunity? Our priorities, therefore, are not simply the words we say. It's not even just the thoughts we think. It's what we actually do. Because if you have it on your heart and mind to do good, but you never execute, what did you really accomplish? If you know for a fact that you've been tapped on the shoulder by the man above, but you don't execute, who do you have to blame but you? Embrace the present because it is a beautiful gift. Live a life of discipline, not because you have to, but because you know for a fact that that's gonna get you closer to where you wanna be. So often the word discipline gets a bad rap, but truly, if you think about it, discipline is love. Discipline is the thing that causes you to say no when you wanna say yes. Discipline is what's gonna allow you to say no to that short-term fun and pleasure in favor of the long-term success that you ultimately seek. Therefore, our priorities and the things we love are not simply thoughts or feelings or emotions. It's where we put our time. It's how we spend our energy. It's who we spend it on and how we choose to embrace it. It's discipline. It's understanding and respecting the fact that discipline isn't a punishment. It's actually the highest form of self-love. But what are you showing to yourself? How much do you love yourself? How much will you embrace that process? How much do you really love your future? And is it based on action? Are you making sure that your mind is as sharp as it could possibly be? That your body is as strong as it possibly could be? That your spirit is as intact as it possibly could be? Are you embracing the present? Not looking for instant gratification, but recognizing that if I delay just a little bit longer, that I could be a little bit more disciplined, sky is the limit. This is the infinite evolution. So what are you showing up for? Who are you showing up for? Where are you spending your time? Where are you spending your energy? And what are the things that are important enough for you to show that discipline? This is the infinite evolution.